Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. Big name this time. I'm joined by the Fantasy Football Scout editor, Neale Rigg. How are you, Neil?
Not too bad, as thank you very much. Yeah, counting down the days now. And this time, in 8 days, I think we'll be doing a team news video for the start of the
Woo!
season. So yeah, it's sharp come round, isn't it?
We just had a lovely pre,
Felt
haven't we,
like,
talking about when your cat went to the toilet on one of the team news streams, and my dog was just
yeah,
retching in the background
yeah,
before we came on. So that's kind of the insight you get on these videos.
talking a lot of crap before we talk even more.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yep, so this is another team news video. Just before we get into it, if you are enjoying the pre-season content, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. And of course, head over to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk and become a member. And you can read more from Neil if you like what he says. If you don't like what Neil says, you probably shouldn't be a Fantasy Football Scout member because you do quite a lot of articles, don't you, Neil?
I do. Yeah, you can't get rid of me that easily.
But it's a great time to sign up. I mean, there's only like a week and a couple of days left to the start of the season, so this is the time to get in, check your rate my team, check the tools, start reading the articles, look at the pre-season form guides that we've done. I mean, Praz and Andy did a great job yesterday on YouTube of summarising everything, but obviously you can keep on top of the remaining pre-season games over on Scout. So go and do that. But we are here today to talk about another FPL draft. You are number 10 of the pre-season drafts. I think you've got the best thumbnail of all of them, Neil. You definitely delighted in doing your little reaction
I
shot,
did.
didn't you?
I think I'm a frustrated vlogger at heart.
I love it.
You should have seen the ones that I didn't send over.
Oh, can you have some outtakes? That'd be
I
amazing.
will do. Yeah, I'll put them up later on. I was channeling my inner Andy from Let's Talk FPL for this feature. I'm not quite as polished as him, but I
I
did quite enjoy doing it.
I can't believe of all the ones I've done. I mean, that's 10 now. I haven't had a single complaint from anyone. I thought like some people would be a bit pushing back, like, "Oh, I'm not doing that," or "Do I have to?" Everyone's just gone straight into it. Done me a great thumbnail. Yeah, I love it. It's been the highlight of pre-season for me is collecting all of these. Right, before we talk about your team, I just want to show the people how good an FPL manager you are, Neil. So this is a bit like this is your life. I mean, you are
Hmm.
genuinely a really good FPL manager. I mean, it goes without saying, you're the editor of Fantasy Football Scout. But I looked at your ranks and I didn't realise. I mean, you are so incredibly consistent in how you play. I mean, in the last, five,
Yeah,
6 years, your lowest finish is 31k. That's pretty damn good.
I think consistent's the word. I think I'm good without being great. I think you can. It's sort of a James Milner-esque 7 out of 10 most seasons. I'm not quite troubling the upper echelons of Tom Freeman or Southerns or anyone like that. I haven't got those 1K ranks to my name, but I just sort of deliver a 6 or 7 out of 10 most seasons and get there or thereabouts sort of top 40K. I think if you manage like I do, which has traditionally been sort of quite safe and dullard, then you're never really going to win FPL.
Mm.
You could probably you can never guarantee high finishes, but mostly I would be aiming towards a sort of top 50k, top 40k mark, and that's generally where I'm ending up recently. I think if you look back, I don't know how far back you got my season history there, but
All of them.
it is I have all of them, yeah. So I do go back a long way, even before the season history started. But you can sort of see. Let me just bring it up there. Um, a little bit of a divide. I mean, 2016, I think, was when I started to become Fantasy Football Scout member and started looking at it more analytically. And it's since then that I've been around about 30k or higher every season. Before that, I think it was markedly different as a manager. I was a bit more playing, certainly more sort of mini league rivalry. I think was the driving force. Overall rank was never really a consideration for me until maybe the sort of mid 2010s, I would
Mm.
say. It's a relatively new concept, really, thinking about it. Because before then, it was all about winning this one league I've got at work. There's a guy in one of my mini leagues who's just way better than I am, and he's always been the target. So you can see finishes there. I mean, some of them are decent, top 5k. Some of them are just awful, like sort of 350,000. But I think it was more about playing with a bit more tactical nous in terms of blocking a mini league rival or
Mm.
or chasing one down, throwing more caution to the wind if I had to chase him. So you'll see that sort of reflected in the ranks. Whereas since 2015, I've become a tedious template dullard, and you can see that in the ORs, I think. But hopefully we're getting closer to that elusive 1K finish, because I'd love one of those. Even though it's getting harder to do that every year.
A tedious template dullards. I love that.
That is me.
I mean, really, I think you're being too humble, really. I mean, you've had one bad finish. I mean, that was 363,000 in 2013, but you then had two other finishes at 145k, and we're going back how many seasons? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about what, 15 seasons. So three seasons outside the top 100k. Every other finish has been 50k or lower, 51k or lower. I mean, you love the 30k mark. You talk about that as your aim. A lot of people have the top 100k. You've got 30k. You finished 39k, 32k, 46k, 30k, 31. So yeah, about 5 finishes around the 30k mark. I mean, it's pretty good, Neale.
I think that underscores what I said. I think I am obviously decent enough, but not quite, at that A-list level. But with you learn more and more about yourself every year as a manager, I think, and you sort of learn from your mistakes. That's the aim anyway. So hopefully go one better this year.
Yeah, nice. So you talk about being kind of a boring kind of manager. How do you, what kind of things do you use then? Do you look at like effective ownership? Are you quite kind of interested in what other people are doing? Or would you say you play your own game, but they just tend to be the sensible picks?
Yeah, probably a bit of both. I think AO is something I would love to not pay any heed to, but I think it's inescapable now. Even if you try and avoid it, see if you don't visit Live FPL, which is a fantastic site, you will find out in any other medium you're using, FPL, like Twitter or Fantasy Football Scout comments section. And of course, I write an article on Live FPL every week, so I can't avoid that site. So yeah, it does, unfortunately, I think, enter the thinking. Now you can argue the case for and against noticing it. I would like to think, though, the sort of driving forces behind moves are more research led and certainly fixtures led. I am probably more fixtures than anything else. I do try and highlight stretches of games where the schedule looks more favourable for teams. I like transfer value is not particularly good most seasons. Team value is pretty poor because I'm of the sort of Tom Freeman school of leaving it as late in the week as possible, getting as much information as I can. I think that was even more necessary in the last 2 seasons with COVID. Maybe I'll play a bit different this year. Maybe I'll chase team value, because I think this year's again going to be a different campaign, in that we've got short bursts of 8 game weeks, where you've got a wild card and then you got unlimited transfers, and then you got another. So I think this season is about playing more aggressively, perhaps, and part of that aggression is making early moves. I think providing that you've got a decent-ish, or at least a playing bench to cover, and we'll come on to that later on when we discuss my team. But I was reading an interview with Fabio the other day, and Will asked him whether he was an aggressive manager or sort of a more template manager. And he said he's not. He's neither. He just evolves to what the game demands every season, and it's different every year. So I think I'll take a leaf out of the Goat's book in that regard.
He's not human. He's a robot in some capacity. I don't believe anyone can be as incredibly consistent as Fabio is. I mean, I had to look at his last 5 ranks. I think his lowest finish is like 2k or something. Something absolutely.
No, that's a FPL great. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I only dream of that.
Yeah, for anyone wondering, I do every year try and get Fabio on some kind of stream, and he's too shy to come on. Bless him. I mean, one other question for you, just before we show your team. You mentioned that you kind of you're the editor of Scout, and you joined in 2016. Do you feel any extra pressure, because you're kind of like, although you're not kind of like the face of Fantasy Football Scout, I guess that's maybe me, which is depressing, given that I do the video hosting. But you're the kind of the brains behind Scout, doing the articles, the main, one of the main features of the site. Obviously, David joined, and he was deputy editor. He had a terrible rank history before he joined. Did really well in the time he was with us, and then he moved on, and then he sort of plummeted again last season. You've managed to keep consistent though in all your time here. Do you feel any extra pressure on that?
I think there's a little bit, and that's exacerbated by being in Greyhead's weekly article, The Great and the Good,
Yeah,
where
I know.
you really are studied in depth in those articles, and you're comparing yourself against the true greats, which really puts things into perspective about your own ability. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said there isn't a little bit of added incentive to do well. But on the same, by the same token, I should be doing well or better because I am, surrounded by FPL stuff 50, 60 hours a week. Sometimes at the expense of my own team because I'm that busy writing, but you do absorb stuff even just by osmosis. Even if you're not looking at your own team and planning ahead, you are making mental notes subconsciously as you go on. And yeah, there's a definite pressure to do well.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I think in my 4 years here, I've managed to avoid any horrendous finish. So I'm hoping that stays the same again this season.
Yeah, that's your main aim. You just got to keep it consistent, keep
Yeah.
those 30Ks, and then people can see, okay, Neale knows what he's talking about. That means I should probably sign up to Scout and look at that. So, yeah, let's just keep doing what you're doing, Neale. I think that's the main thing. Let's take a look at your team then ahead of game week 1. Interesting to talk about that. This, given that you've talked about kind of being a relatively boring manager. I think you've. I mean, it's a fairly template team. There's a couple of interesting ones in here. One very notable omission that I noticed. Okay, so it's Raya in goal. It's Trent, Robertson, Diaz, and Dalot.
Yeah.
Mason Mount, Jack Grealish, Martinelli, Salah captain, and then Gabriel Jesus and Kane up front. And you mentioned about a bench where you've got Balcom, Neco Williams, Andreas, and Archer, the classic holy trinity of the cheapest players that you can get in those three positions. Let's talk about the glaring obvious one that you don't have though, and that is no Cancelo. You've gone for Diaz instead. Talk about that.
Well, that is something I could address. I mean, I know the sort of the trend is to go for 4-4-2. I think at the moment, I think with Jesus coming in to the start of the summer, it was more, but 5 at the back. But I've had a 4-4-2 ever since I made the first draft. I think. The thing is, I think Cancelo is someone I would eventually want. It's the same with Reece James, who's not part of this side. I've just got my concerns maybe about City's defence at the start of the season. Laporte's, we don't know about his fitness. Diaz himself had missed a large chunk of pre-season, I think, as well, although he came back against Bayern. There's been talk of obviously Ake moving to Chelsea, and Cucurella's obviously not come in yet, so there's been a wee bit of disruption. Added to that, of course, they got West Ham on the opening day, and they're very capable of scoring. And something had to give. Basically, I've seen a lot of midfields packed out with Neto and Martinelli. Now, that's something I still can do. I can downgrade Grealish to Neto and then go Diaz to Cancelo. It's something I might still do, but I don't like the Neto Martinelli combination. I think it looks weak. Traditionally, FPL's always been about points from midfield. I know last season was the defender season, really, but every year is different. It'll be naive to think we're going to get the year of the fullback or wing-back again. We might still get that, but I think at the start of the season, where you're not quite sure where the form is going to be, where the sort of key positions are going to be, I think we'll see a renaissance from the forwards this year, for example. Then I think a 4-4-2 gives you balance, and that in a 4 midfield of decent-ish enough players, which meant a bit of sacrifice at the back in terms of expenditure. Now Diaz, the reason I've gone Diaz is because Laporte's injured, we think, at the moment, and Pep traditionally builds that back 4 around a central defensive mainstay. It's been the case for years. He's gone Otamendi 1 year, Fernandinho when everyone was injured, he was the go-to guy. It was Laporte. Diaz was 1 year, then Laporte last year. I think he started. I think he only missed 2 of the games or something. He was in the squad for. So he likes to build around a centre half. And then perhaps rotate around that. So until we get news about Laporte and his fitness, then it'll be Diaz as a placeholder. And the second was we've run an article recently on value and so last season's points based on this season's value based on that last season's points. So the new prices. So we've calculated points per million per game, and Cancelo, Diaz, and Laporte are all round about the same in terms of points per million per game. Now, of course, we're going to get new points for the season. Last year's scores are redundant now, but it's a decent sort of gauge when I'm weighing up value in my team. I think point per million per game. Because FPL's value metric doesn't really take into account minutes played. It's just about who's got the most points at the end of the season. So I did look at that a bit. Now I do think Cancelo underachieved last season. He should have scored more based on his efforts, and he is someone I want at the moment. But just to get a route into that City defence, which is capable of keeping clean sheets, and I wasn't quite happy with the double up just yet at this early stage. And in order to flesh out the midfield further forward, I sacrificed Cancelo, and you will get that with every team. Every team you'll see in this series that your hosting has will have a sacrifice. It's most people I think it's in midfield, with Neto and Bailey and people like that. For me, it's just an alternative City defender. Now that could still change in a week, but that's where I'm at right now.
Because your other kind of interesting options are Dallo, so 4.5 defending starter in defence. You could argue that's almost another sacrifice as well, because most people for the back are looking at a James or a Perisic or someone like that. What's your feeling with him then?
Well, I did start off with a sort of a premium 4. It's slightly ebbing away a bit. I think with Chelsea, if you read Zofar's article this morning, they haven't started well in pre-season. Now, I know pre-season's form, you disregard the results. I think you disregard the goals and assists, but you do look at setup. You do look at what the manager's saying, and he is not happy. You heard his quote after the Arsenal game when he says we're not going to be ready for the new season.
Yeah.
Then that filled me with a bit of trepidation. And if you look at Chelsea's first 8, yes, there's some decent games within there. But let me just bring it up. Their first 4 home games are against Spurs, Leicester, West Ham, and Liverpool. So all 4 of those are very capable of scoring. Easier away games, definitely. But when we have the other premium sides and assets with such good fixtures in that opening quarter of the season, then Chelsea defence at the moment is my sacrificial lamb. Again, that could change by next Thursday, but so that was the reason for no Chelsea. The reason for no Spurs, of course, was I think the wing back areas are still a bit of a grey area. I think if we got a clear indication of Perisic's fitness over who Conte preferred on the right, which we still don't know. We've seen Lucas Moura playing there in the last 2 games. We've seen Doherty on the left when Lucas was playing on the right. We've seen Perisic struggling for minutes and then brought on for Sessegnon, wasn't it, at the weekend? There's just a bit too much uncertainty for me in those positions. Again, longer term, I think probably the first wildcard in the international break, I think you'll see my team balance redressed then, and I think we'll know by that point, for example, how solid Chelsea are at the back, whether I'd consider a double up with James and Chilwell, whether I'd want to plumb for Perisic by that point. There's just the uncertainty with Chelsea and Spurs that led me away to a 4th premium. And I don't like uncertainty at the start of a season. You try and eliminate as many risks as I think you can going into game week 1. And the reason for Darlow, which is a name I can't believe I'm even discussing. If he'd said that to me a month ago, yeah. Well, United, I think there's still question marks about the defence, even with their pre-season form. But if you've seen any United in the summer, then you'll have witnessed the rise of the underlapping fullback, and Darlow forming quite a nice little partnership with Sancho down that right. Sancho sort of keeping wide, and then Darlow undercutting him into the box. And we saw him hit the post against Liverpool. We saw him assist the assister for Martial's goal against Palace, I think it was. So he's getting into the box. He's getting into decent positions. He's looked impressive. Now, again, I'll be keeping an eye on the transfer market. If United swoop for a right back, which they might well, then he's obviously he may be a gunner by that point. But at the moment, I like the look of him. Plenty concerned about United's clean sheets. They were dismal last year. I'm hoping Martinez, who's just been confirmed today, comes in and helps with that. Maybe Martinez and Varane, although Maguire's been playing on the right, which suggests he might be partnering him. They made a new sign at left back as well, so I'm not expecting much from Darlow, but he does rotate fairly well if I had a one budget spot with Williams and Andreas Pereira So you've got Darlow for the first two against Brighton and Brentford. You've got Pereira against Brentford in game weeks 3 and game weeks 3. Then Darlow can come back in game week 4 against Southampton. Then you've got Pereira at home against Brighton again. And then Nico Williams' good fixtures kick in from game week 6, where he's playing Bournemouth, Leeds, Fulham after that. So it's not perfect. I don't like starting with players like that, but it's a decent rotating slot. If I do end up wanting to splash more on midfield further forward. And as I say, I'm not expecting major things from Darlow, but I do like United in pre-season, and he's possibly the pick of the 4.5s at the moment for me. Eventually, I think you've got Pereira and Justin at Leicester who will come into the equation maybe after game week 9, but at this point, Darlow is the placeholder.
It's quite interesting what you've done, because you've downgraded Cancelo to Diaz. You've taken a 4.5 sort of starting player in your side, and then you've used that money to not go for Neto in midfield and get a bit more balance in midfield, because a lot of people are going, like you said, with the 5.5, the 6. Rashford's popular as well, and Salah. Whereas you've got Mount and Grealish, so that's an 8 and a 7 in there.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you talk about Chelsea kind of struggling and not paying the money for Reece James and Chilwell, but you've gone for Mount, who's more expensive, but nailed on.
I should stress, I think my reservations about Chelsea are defensive. I think they can still gamble their opening fixtures. I think from an attacking perspective, Everton, who we've seen in pre-season, are absolute pony, and I think they're going to struggle again. They've got Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, West Ham and Fulham to come between game weeks 1 and 7 as well. And then they all, and of course, you will see teams get better this year. Leicester, I think, will get better defensively. I'm sure that will be the case without Europe, with injured players back. But the likes of Leeds, Southampton, Fulham particularly, West Ham, even with their new centre-half out, injured, there are goals in them, there are games, I think. And the reason for Mount, it's not particularly Mount himself, there's just an 8 million midfielder slot there. And I think there is such a wealth of talent within that range, that sort of price range. Kulusevski, Saka, Mahrez, Foden, all those players are on that price point, that I wanted an easier shift if someone did become unavoidable in a sort of template side. So that was the reason for Mount. Grealish, I guess, is a bit more of a maverick punt. Again, of this starting 11, he's the one where cash will be freed up if I wanted to get Cancelo in, if I wanted to get Perisic over Darlow. Grealish would be the guy to go. I just think we underestimate City and what they're capable of. Every year, every pre-season I do it, I start with like one City on my team, because I think, there's too much rotation and there's too much. They haven't had a great pre-season, haven't had many fixtures. Some of the players are just coming back from injury, and they are always near the top of the league for goals scored. They're always the top of the league for clean sheets kept, and basically, I want a route to triple Liverpool and triple City as early as possible. We'll discuss Haaland in a moment. Kane's in there for now, but he can be a sideways move to Haaland. Grealish is part based a little bit on gut or superstition, or whatever you want to call it, because we've seen before about Pep signings having a much better second campaign than they do in their opening season. There's been a long track record of that, and the words from Haaland about that relationship between the pair seem very positive. They've also lost Jesus and Sterling as rotation options. Yes, they've gained Alvarez, but I think he might be a bit more like Ferran Torres at first. It'll take a little bit of while before he's fully trusted, I think. So you've got really Grealish, Foden, Mahrez, and Haaland as the four. And Pep did trust Grealish a lot last season, even when he wasn't sort of delivering the goods. And with the 5 subs rule, you're going to see a lot more game time for every City player. Is probably going to see more action. Even though Pep didn't use as many substitutes last season as other managers, there'll still be a proportional increase. So he's in there for now. As I say, he would be the one to go. Rashford could come in. Neto could come in if I do bow down to the herd and double up on Martinelli with Neto in midfield. But a route into the City attack is something I'm keen on in game week 1, even if I haven't got Haaland. So Mount could become Foden, or Mahrez alternatively, and then Grealish is Neto or Bailey perhaps, and then Cancelo can come in. But yeah, for now he's sitting in there.
It's interesting how
differential
it's interesting how players like Grealish kind of start creeping into more and more teams. I mean, he was in no teams when we were doing these a few weeks ago, and he was man of the match in their last pre-season. So then it was like, oh, maybe he's my route into the team, and especially because a lot of people are now favouring Kane over Haaland, like you said, because of Pep's comments about his niggles. That it kind of gives you that safety blanket of being like, oh, at least I've got one City player in place.
I think that's a good way of summing up. I think safety blanket and coverage is a dangerous thing because you aren't going to get Haaland late returns from Grealish. But yeah, I think we saw last season the points were spread around in the City attack, and I still think the likes of Foden and Mahrez and Grealish can offer something in their own right this season without being necessarily coverage. I think 7 million is nothing really. It's if you look at it's such a dearth of talent between 6 and 7.5 million in the FPL pool this season. You've got Rashford sort of coming more into it, Sancho as well. But there aren't really that many mid-price midfield alternatives, and Grealish might surprise us, but the proof will be in the pudding when the real action starts, not a pre-season friendly against Bayern.
I've got Mahrez in my team at the moment, and I'm his biggest critic. I mean, I've vowed so many times over the last few seasons never to go to Mahrez again, but for the same reasons you're considering Grealish, the same reason I'm considering Mahrez. It's always too perfect with Mahrez though. It always looks like it's going to be great, and then it kind of never is. So that's the kind of worry. But
was it last season or the season before where he played the whole chunk of pre-season? Everyone else was laid back, and he was the only one.
Last year,
it was last season, wasn't it? Yeah, when the Euros was on, he played like every minute of pre-season. He was starring, and then wasn't he benched like straight away?
I think he might play, but he didn't deliver anything, and then he was straight on the bench. He's a very, very, very frustrating player, but you've got to think with Jesus leaving, and Foden's been training with the under 23s, hasn't he?
He has. That was the other reason for Grealish as well. Yeah, Foden hasn't quite been involved yet, so it might end up being a short-term punt, but one I'm willing to make at this juncture.
No Newcastle, Neil?
No
Trippier? No Ramirez? No Wilson? What's going on?
No, well, I think Jesus has put an end to the any sort of thought I might have of getting Wilson in. Guimaraes, perhaps. He's an alternative to Martinelli at that point. Certainly more guaranteed a game time than Martinelli as well. I just think the fixtures aren't great in the first 5. There's some decent games, but there's also City and Liverpool to come. And I think Newcastle probably more a team I would gravitate towards from game week 6 onwards. Brighton away is not easy either for Newcastle. It's traditionally one of the better defensive sides outside of the big 6. So I'm willing to sort of overlook Newcastle for now. I do think there'll be some value there this season. I think we defensively, I think will be decent value from not just Trippier but possibly Botman as well at 4.5. Attacking wise, I've still got reservations. I think because we've tried without success to add to our attack in the summer. We need more goals really up top. I think we haven't really got a prolific right winger. It's Almiron or Fraser at the moment. And Sir Maximum's certainly not prolific himself. He's got every trick in the book, but something wanting for end product. And Wilson's fitness you can't rely on. So I think we might struggle for goals. I think we'll be comfortably mid-table, but I don't expect we'll be peppering the goals for count as the likes of sort of West Ham or Leicester will. So I think I'll avoid them for now.
Good first game though. Nottingham Forest. Not Forest at home.
But then again, Forest were probably my tips for the drop initially of the 3 promoted clubs. Now look the best equipped for dealing with life in the Premier League.
Signings,
so
many.
And it'll take the time for them to bed in, of course. But I think Cooper's a sort of a shrewd customer. He reminds me a bit of Potter in a way. I think he gets the best out of a group of players that are probably not as good as the team are as a collective. He's got a similar system as well, that sort of 3 at the back. And I think that might be a trickier game than we are thinking against Forest. unlike Fulham and Bournemouth, who I'm very willing to target from the off.
Final question. You mentioned Haaland earlier. You've got Kane over him. How likely are you to make that switch back?
It's possible. At the moment, it'll be a booked transfer, which is never a good idea when you're going into the start of a season. But that would be the idea to be more aggressive, I think, with the big guns this in the first quarter when we have got we know there's a fallback of an early wild card. Game week 9 will be when it will be earmarked for, but we can use it earlier if we want without much, wouldn't cause much disruption to our season because we've got unlimited transfers from game week, was it 16, 17? So I think I'm willing to make more of those short-term moves, which is something I would never do in the past. I would have my premium settled really for longer chunks. So the plan is at the moment to have Kane in there from the off and then maybe switch to Haaland from game week 2. But then again, Spurs have got Chelsea in game week 2 and we've seen how bad Chelsea have been in pre-season. So I may end up just sticking with Kane for the first 6 game weeks or so.
Just Grealish and Diaz going into Bournemouth at home. What can go wrong?
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't look good when you see it like that.
No, not so good. I mean, because at the moment I've got Son in my side and just Cancelo, no City attackers. And then I think, well, if Son gets a brace against Southampton, am I going to want to make that move either to Haaland for a hit or over to De Bruyne? It's very, I don't know. It is a tricky one. I get the sense that people with Haaland will be quite happy just to go into game week 2 with Haaland, and all the Spurs guys might be having to make a difficult decision to transfer. So I don't think there really isn't an obvious right answer. I think both strategies have got pros and cons, and at the moment Twitter and Scout are favouring the Kane move and general ownership favours Haaland. So it's going to be a bit of a split. It's kind of the big main decision, isn't it, between the two? Yeah,
it's scary when you look at the ownership figure of Haaland. Like even with the fitness worries, he's still, I think, only just behind Jesus, isn't he, on sort of 60%-ish? So given my previous of being spineless and bowing down to last minute panic and fear of missing out, then you wouldn't be surprised to see me make a 6:29 decision on Friday.
Oh, he's actually done a 58.3% Haaland. I think he was really close to Hayes. I think it was like 62, 63%. So
he was ahead of him at one point. Yeah,
he has shed some ownership, and I think that's because people are freaking out a little bit about Pep's comments, which will probably turn out to be nothing, and he'll play 90 minutes in both and inevitably punish us all. Neale, that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you have enjoyed this video, do subscribe to the channel where you'll get notified about any new videos. Do like this video as well. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you think of Neale's team. Also, if you're a free member of Fantasy Football Scout, we're giving away 1 premium membership every video. So just drop your username into the comment section below. If you've already got a premium membership, you can drop a friend's username into the comment section below, and we'll be rewarding 1 membership for each video. So 1 memberships for a lucky person. I think that's it. Neale, thank you so much. We'll be back with our regular content next week. Team news next Friday. Woo!
Yeah, it's back. Woo! Yeah, we might do a bonus one. We were discussing this, won't we? We might do an extra one at the beginning of the week. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah,
but just a sort of a dissection of pre-season and sort of minutes played and things like that. So you might see me twice next week.
I know. Wow, God, isn't everyone lucky? Yeah, some kind of predicted team type thing with minutes. Yeah, expected. I think that'd be a really good video. So yeah, again, if you're interested in that, let us know in the comments below. But that is it for now. I'll catch up with you soon, Neale, and for everyone who's watched and listened. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.